So one would call you a Democrat. And
No, hell no. Look, there's different things for different reasons, right?
would you be comfortable with a capitalist like Donald Trump being our president?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I like Donald and he's smart. You know, like a lot of candidates and politicians, you vote for not what they say, but knowing that 99% of they say won't come true, what they'll do once they get
see
it.
who's going to follow through.
And do I think he's smart enough to figure that out and then just do the right thing after he's elected? Yes.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about woke billionaire Mark Cuban, who is one of these guys that is 100% team Democrat, mainly because he has a severe case of Trump derangement. And it seems like the individuals who have the severest form of Trump derangement used to be former Trump supporters, right? They knew Trump as an individual back before he ran for president, and like a vast majority of the people that knew Trump before he ran for president, all of them said that he was a great guy, right? He's a great businessman, extremely smart, intelligent, just an overall great dude, okay? Great guy to work with. And there were really no complaints, right? You did not have so many people coming out and talking about how bad Trump is, how he's a terrible person, how unethical he is, and all this other stuff that they're saying today, okay? Because we know that in 2016, there was a chip put into the minds of the media, of Hollywood, of some people in the business community, everybody, to make them believe that Trump was the worst thing ever, right? That he's the devil because he ran as a Republican and he won the Republican nomination and he beat Hillary Clinton. Again, all of a sudden, everybody now hates Trump, right? And we're talking about Mark Cuban because some clips have resurfaced on the internet of Mark Cuban being one of these individuals that was basically a Trump supporter back before he ran for president, and even during the first part of his presidency before he became severely Trump deranged. Take a look.
So one would call you a Democrat. And
No, hell no. Look, there's different things for different reasons, right?
would you be comfortable with a capitalist like Donald Trump being our president?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I like Donald and he's smart. You know, like a lot of candidates and politicians, you vote for not what they say, but knowing that 99% of they say won't come true, what they'll do once they get
see
it.
who's going to follow through.
And do I think he's smart enough to figure that out and then just do the right thing after he's elected? Yes. And then Hillary and Bernie say, okay, tax the 1% and that'll pay for everything. Doesn't work, right? Won't work. You know, Hillary's pay for college, her plan is ridiculous. It'll increase college costs, not reduce. You know, so they don't think them through.
You said, Trump, I get it.
He's changing the tone of politics. You know, in the past, you had to be a Stepford candidate. You had to be perfect. You know, did you ever inhale? Oh no, I only inhaled. Right? Just you had to be perfect. Now Trump is the ultimate imperfect candidate, and I think the beauty of what he's doing isn't his policy or his positions, but he's making everybody else become more real. He's making them more honest. They're not as scripted, and I think that's good for politics.
You have a long history with Donald Trump.
That's my
right?
boy.
Yeah.
Kinda. You know, in person, he's nice. Here's what I do respect about Donald. I'm not saying vote for him, right? But there's something I do respect about him. Donald says what's on his mind, right? He's the guy that if we're sitting around talking at a bar, if we're at your birthday drinking champagne and having pink cake, he's going to say what's on his mind. So I respect the fact that he's the first politician to truly say what's on his mind, even if it's not politically correct.
You said Donald Trump, probably the best thing to happen to politics in a long, long time, you said. Would you be Donald Trump's VP? I'm just going to jump right in.
Sure, I'd be VP for either candidate.
If Hillary Clinton decides that Elizabeth Warren is the one for her on the VP ticket,
then there's a good chance I vote for Donald Trump. I like to see corporate taxes much lower. I'd like to see inversions from companies moving be far fewer. So yeah, so from a corporate tax perspective, and I agree with him. I like what he's doing from that perspective, and we'll see what he does on the personal side. But he's obviously had an impact on the economy, so he gets credit for that. People believe in what he's doing on the tax front. They believe, and I agree on the reduction of regulation. And not all regulation, the EPA type stuff I don't agree with, but in some of it, the simplification of doing business I agree with. Reducing some of the bureaucracy and the lobbying rules. There's a lot of positives that are positives for business.
Yeah, so what you guys understand, at that point in time, Mark Cuban had known Donald Trump for years, okay? Known him for years. And what he said back then was that Trump is smart. He's a good businessman. I like him. right? I think that he's good for politics. The fact that he says what he believes, okay, and he is unapologetic about being politically incorrect. These are all the things that Mark Cuban was saying back then. Now, we know that Trump hasn't changed, right? The people that have changed are the people that used to like him, like Mark Cuban. And then, you know, all of a sudden now they hate him because they've been told by the Democrat Party, you must hate Trump, right? But Trump hasn't changed. Trump is the same person today that he was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. He's the exact same person, right? So we all know what happened in regards to the change, okay? And now listen to Mark Cuban in his latest interview talk about Trump.
That's the Roy Cohn School of Management, right? You demonize and demonize and demonize and give credit to nobody else. And that is the antithesis of good leadership. That's the antithesis of good character. That's the antithesis of being ethical. That's who Donald Trump is. I've known him for 25 years. I'm never going to say we were best friends, but he is the most unethical, lacks character, dishonest person I've ever done business with or worked with.
Why does that matter, though? Like, people are going to look at that and say, I don't care, he's an asshole.
And they do, yeah.
But he's our
He's my asshole, yeah,
right?
yeah. Character is destiny, right? You don't know. The one thing about the presidency of the United States, you don't know what's coming next. The past is no predictor of the future. You have no idea what the next problem is you have to deal with on a small or large basis, like COVID for that matter, right? And you want somebody who has character, because that has empathy, that has a willingness to learn and understand. And you want somebody that is ethical when it comes to making difficult decisions. I can't even imagine why people consider Donald Trump because of his lack of character and ethics. Because when that tough time comes to make a decision, he's only going to listen to himself. And we've seen how that works out. We saw it worked on the debate, right? If he's not going to listen to anybody for a debate, right? And when he's trying to convince people to vote for him, when you have 40 or 44 cabinet members disavow him and say you shouldn't vote for him, when you have, former Republican presidents and senators and current senators come out and saying don't vote for him, that is not a man of character. They would have given him the benefit of the doubt if they believed in his ethics or his character, or that he was honest. And that tells you all you need to know. You don't want somebody like that dealing with the uncertainty. And as bad as lack of ethics, lack of character, lack of honesty is, the fact that he makes no effort to learn anything. This is one of the few human beings on the planet that get dumber in front of our face every single day. It's not like you can't think of one thing where it says, I think, that's really smart. Right? Or that's really nuanced, or he really understood that topic with some depth.
Yeah.
Not one time. And that's what's so maddening and infuriating about the whole thing.
Wow. You seen that, you heard that. Now, that is a stark difference between what we saw from Mark Cuban back in 2015, 2016, even the first part of Trump's presidency, 2017, in which this guy, Mark Cuban, was very supportive of Trump's policies. When asked, hey, are you a Democrat? Oh, hell no. He said hell no. He just say no. He said hell no. But now all of a sudden, this is the same guy backing a candidate, somebody like Kamala Harris, who is proposing to tax unrealized capital gains, which is something that Mark Cuban even admitted himself was a really dumb and stupid idea that would crash the market, right? But, he also said that, well, she's kind of lying, okay, to people in public about what she really wants to do. And she's telling us billionaires, the people who have bought and sold her, she's telling us the truth about what she really wants to do, right? And I think that's part of what's going on here, is that Mark Cuban can't get access to Trump the same way that he can get access to Kamala Harris, right? Because a lot of this is really about power and control, right? Mark Cuban can control Kamala Harris because she's a politician. She doesn't have any real talent. She hasn't built anything outside of, again, just being a politician. So yeah, she's easily controlled, right? You just buy her and tell her what to do, tell her what to say. And hey, that's what Mark Cuban wants. In fact, I know this is the case because he told Jon Stewart not too long ago that one of the reasons why he stopped supporting Trump back in 2015 is because he called up Trump to try to give Trump some advice. And Trump said, kick rocks, basically.
Like we were talking about this one debate for CNBC that he wasn't going to be at. And I'm like, Donald.
Not going, Mark.
Not going.
It's not happening.
I'm like, Donald, why don't you go to a local small business and sit there at the table and just show off your business chops, right? And show people your business. He goes, Mark, Donald Trump and Mark Cuban don't go to people's houses and have dinner. Are you kidding me? That's who he is, right? When we talked about what's he going to do with the ground game, now I got all these religious people who are going to do the work for me.
Yeah, so if you check out this tweet from Trump back in 2017, he says that, yeah, Mark Cuban was a big backer of mine, but yet I didn't take all his calls, right? And that's honestly why Mark Cuban is upset, in my opinion, right? Because he couldn't buy Trump the same way that he's bought Kamala Harris, right? It's just so hilarious when you actually look into it. It's like, okay, it actually makes sense now. Mark Cuban is just mad because Trump told him to kick rocks, right? Trump said, nah. I don't need your advice, right? I'm not going to do everything you say, okay, just because you give me money, right? Like a normal politician, right? I want to do my own thing. And Mark Cuban got mad about that, right? He's jealous. Trump apparently hasn't sold himself to Mark Cuban the same way that Kamala Harris has sold herself to Mark Cuban, because there's no doubt in my mind that Kamala Harris has been listening to Mark Cuban as an advisor. And I know this because I can pick up on how Kamala Harris speaks about startups and small businesses, right? She's starting to sound like Mark Cuban, right? It sounds like she watched an episode of Shark Tank and she tries to regurgitate some of the talking points from Shark Tank and from people like Mark Cuban, although she has no clue what she's talking about when it comes to venture capital, right? I guarantee you Kamala Harris would go into full-blown word salad if you asked her what is a MVP, right? What is an MVP? Okay, what's a seed round? Okay, I guarantee you, if you got into the nuances, right, of venture capital with Kamala Harris, I guarantee you she wouldn't understand it. In fact, there's no topic that I feel like Kamala Harris really understands in depth, which is funny because Mark Cuban is accusing Trump of not understanding topics in depth, but there's nothing that Kamala Harris has talked about. Well, I said, wait, she really actually knows a lot about this, right? She's an expert in this, okay? Has anybody heard Kamala Harris talk about the economy? Allegedly, she has an economics degree from Howard University, but it doesn't seem like she learned a lot, right, when she was in school. So I don't know, right? I mean, I think there's a lot to be desired in regards to Kamala's knowledge on the economy, considering how she went to school for that. And also on top of that, her father was an economist as well, too. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, although her father is a communist, he's probably intelligent, right? Which is part of the reason why he's nowhere to be found, right? He doesn't seem to be very supportive of Kamala Harris. He wants to stay as far away as possible from that clown show. But anyways, my point is this, right? What happened over the 4 years of Trump's presidency that changed Mark Cuban's mind, right? How do you go from a guy that knew Trump back in 2015, 2016, 2017 for years, right? And Mark Cuban wasn't saying any of these things that he's saying today about how Trump is a terrible businessman, he's so unethical to work with. Why weren't you saying this back in 2015, 2016, 2017? Because to my knowledge, I don't think that Mark Cuban has worked with Trump on any type of business deals since Trump became president, right? Now, I could be wrong on that, but I'm just saying, assuming that he hasn't done that, that some of these, business deals or his work with Trump happened before Trump became president, what has changed, right? What has changed to the point where you feel like you should come out and say the things that you're saying about Trump that's in complete opposition to what you said about Trump about 10 years ago, right? It doesn't make sense because in the 4 years that Trump was president, the economy was booming. We had less wars. Our border was stronger. Crime was under control, right? This country was in a much better place under Trump. So how do you go from basically almost essentially being a Trump supporter, right? And saying a lot of positive things about Trump. How do you go from that to full-blown Trump derangement after successful 4 years of a Trump presidency, right? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I don't want to hear anything about the staff turnover or all these never Trumpers or Trump deranged individuals that used to work for Trump in his administration coming out and saying that, oh, Trump's a bad guy and all this stuff. I don't want to hear anything about that because that happens to everybody, right? I'm pretty sure Mark Cuban has fired some people who probably don't have great things to say about Mark Cuban, right? After being fired, okay? That's what happened to Trump. Hey, Kamala Harris, her staff had super high turnover rate as VP, right? And you had people leaking all types of crazy stuff to the press about how Kamala Harris is not a good boss to work for behind closed doors. So if that's the standard that you're applying, then you got to apply that same standard to Kamala Harris. Notice how he doesn't do that with her, right? Although there's similar stories, right, of people coming out and trashing Kamala Harris.
President Biden threatened to fire anyone who didn't treat others with respect back in January. But it looks like his VP's office didn't get the memo, as Kamala Harris is once again linked to a toxic work environment. Politico reporting this, quote, people are thrown under the bus from the very top. There are short fuses and it's an abusive environment, said another person with direct knowledge of how Harris's office is run. Quote, it's not a healthy environment and people often feel mistreated. It's not a place where people feel supported, but a place where people feel treated like blank. I'll let you fill in the blank. And it's not the first time Harris faced accusations like this. During her White House bid, one of her campaign directors resigned, writing, quote, this is my third presidential campaign, and I have never seen an organization treat its staff so poorly. I no longer have confidence in our campaign or its leadership. The treatment of our staff over the last 2 weeks was the final straw. And back when Harris was senator, the Sacramento Bee editorial board called her out for claiming she was completely unaware that a senior aide she had known for 14 years was serially harassing colleagues.
Yeah, so shouldn't this speak of Kamala Harris's character, right? According to Mark Cuban in his argument against Trump, which is that, well, when you have all these Trump deranged individuals that come out and say bad things about Trump after working for him under his presidency, oh, well, that's a reflection that he's just a bad guy, right? Well, shouldn't you apply that same standard to Kamala Harris, considering how there's similar reports, right, of people coming out and trashing Kamala Harris after working for her? Now, here's the big difference between the people trashing Trump versus the people trashing Kamala Harris. You get rewarded for trashing Trump, right? If you come out and you trash Trump after working for him, you end up like Alyssa Farrah Griffin, right? You get a multi-million-dollar job, right? A voice, a platform on The View, on CNN, on the liberal networks, right? Yeah, you get rewarded for that. Okay, but if you are somebody that comes out and you trash Democrats after, working for them or whatever, you never heard from again, right? Nobody cares about you. Nobody's platforming you on CNN or giving you a job on The View because you have exposed how bad it is to work for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So again, you got to question the motivations of these Trump deranged individuals that are coming out and speaking against Trump. But yet, for whatever reason, Mark Cuban doesn't care about the reports of chaos and destruction among Kamala Harris and her staff and her campaign, right? He doesn't care about that for whatever reason. That doesn't speak badly of her character, right? I think part of the reason why is, again, because Mark Cuban has bought and sold Kamala Harris, right? So he has a vested interest in supporting her because that's where he's put his money, right? But I have to seriously question Mark Cuban's judgment, because if what he's saying today is correct and we should believe him, then what he was saying back then was not correct, right? It could not have been correct considering what he's saying today. Now, if what he was saying back then is correct, then what he's saying today is not correct because Trump hasn't changed. And we've had 4 good years of a Trump presidency. We've seen him run the country, okay? And Mark Cuban seemed to enjoy Trump's policies, right? He seemed to support the policies before he became full-blown Trump deranged. So again, I got to question his judgment. I have to question your motivations for what you're saying. There's no reason for me to believe you or to take what you're saying seriously because you haven't clearly articulated what has changed, right? What has made you change your mind? How do you go from, do you support Democrats? Hell no. If Elizabeth Warren was on the ticket, I'm voting for Trump. How do you go from that to supporting the most progressive candidate we've ever seen, right, in our lifetime? How does that happen? How does that happen? But then again, is anybody surprised? Kamala Harris, his flip-flop, right? She went from the most progressive senator ever, okay, to, oh, she's some moderate. She's some staunch moderate, right, according to Mark Cuban. So clearly this guy's judgment is off. And maybe, just maybe, he sees himself in Kamala Harris, right? And the ability to flip-flop and to lie to American people about what they actually believe, okay? And to flip-flop on the issues on a drop of a dime, whenever it benefits them politically or maybe business-wise, right? Because I honestly think that's what's going on here. Kamala Harris has been bought and sold by Mark Cuban, and he's flip-flopping in order to, make sure that his candidate wins, right? And trying to present himself as some type of credible voice when he's not, right? He's just saying whatever he has to say to get his candidate elected so that he can get some kickbacks and some favors, which is exactly what's going on here. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.